as you are well aware at this point, this is our free online course launch called Popular Education in Dark Times, Critical Learning for Transformative Action. And my name is John Pfeffer, and I work for the Institute for Policy Studies, a think tank in Washington, D.C., where I direct the Global Just Transition Project. And I am so delighted to be here as part of this launch. There's been a lot of work that went into this, into these three courses. And you're going to hear a little bit more, but just a little bit about each of the three. Obviously, if you want to find out more, you're going to have to enroll in the classes and find out all the amazing information that's in there. As people are continuing to come into our session here, I'm just going to list our co-sponsors for today's event. The Health of Mother Earth Foundation in Nigeria, Foreign Policy and Focus in the USA, Transnational Institute in the Netherlands, WoMin, a Pan-African Feminist Alliance, the Ecosocial and Intercultural Pact of the South from Latin America, HINTS, the Sahita Institute in Indonesia, the Post-Extractive Futures Transnational Network, Vikalp Sangam, Alternatives India, and the Global Tapestry of Alternatives. It would be wonderful if folks could tell us where you are all from in the chat, and I'll start that off by putting my own name and location. It would be wonderful just to get a sense of the geographic spread of our participants today. And as I said, we are launching these three courses as part of a free online set of three courses. And today's session is called Popular Education in Dark Times, Critical Learning for Transformative Action. And this is a project of the Global Working Group Beyond Development. And I'm going to introduce Miriam Lang right now, who is going to tell us a little bit more about this project and about the Global Working Group Beyond Development. Miriam Lang is a sociologist, a Latin Americanist, and an activist. She works as a professor at the Department of Environment and Sustainability at the University Andina Simón Bolívar in Ecuador. There she has coordinated the International Master's Program on Political Ecology and Alternatives to Development since 2020. She's a member of the Pacto Ecosocial y Intercultural del Sur, that's the Ecosocial and Intercultural Pact of the South, since 2020, and I'll put her bio in the chat as well. Miriam, please join us.
Thank you very much, John. I'm very happy to be here with my fellow Global Working Group members and also some people who have accepted to comment on those courses we have been building over the last years. I would like to extend a warm welcome to everybody who joins this event, and especially to the people from East Asia I am seeing, Indonesia and Philippines, because it's really late for them. And I'm amazed that you are here. Yeah, so I would like to give you a short introduction to what the Global Working Group Beyond Development really is. For this purpose, I will share my screen and maybe add to my bio that I have been a co-founder of this working group, which has been operating since 2016. It is a space that dedicates itself to, we could say, knowledge production for radical change, for emancipatory systemic transformations, as we call it, in this very special period of history that we are living, that we have diagnosed as a multidimensional and also civilizational crisis. Multidimensional because it is far beyond only environmental, it is a political crisis. It is also a cultural crisis. I think we can see this with the rise of authoritarianisms throughout the world, but also it is a crisis of forced migration, of work as we understand it, of care, of inequality, which is at its highest point, etc. And it is civilizational because it is grounded in some very funding assumption of this Western modern capitalist civilization we are living in. So we gathered together with a group of about 30 people in 2016 from all continents in a very special mix with the purpose to have a dialogue of knowledges, a dialogue between different experiences of radical transformation from all over the world, and try to look ahead and say, if the crisis is multidimensional, we also have to respond to it in a multidimensional way. This working group was sponsored in its first years by the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation. This is a German foundation for political education, which is close to the Left Party. It was funded by the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation until 2022, and then it had to get independent, grow independent from that funding and look for other sponsors. But we are still here. And so one very important point was to get together not only geographical diversity from all continents, but also different schools of thought, feminist thought, unorthodox Marxist thought, decolonial thought, indigenous knowledge, ecological knowledge, etc., and merge them into a systemic intersectional approach to what was happening in the world. And so our focus has been to generate visibility for alternative pathways which are beyond the hegemonic developmental economic growth expansive paradigm, which has brought us to collide with planetary limits, we could maybe say. This working group has had a series of meetings since its funding, which you can see on this slide. The last one was in Indonesia, precisely, last fall, and has produced over the time these 4 books, which I warmly recommend you to investigate, to download. They are completely free, available on the Global Working Group webpage. But then, although the books have been received very well by very different audiences, we were eager to also produce, translate them, so to say, in other formats that would be accessible to other publics, that would respond to other needs in grassroots organizations, for university students, for activist organizations, etc. And this has brought us to work on these online courses that we want to present today. So here are some pictures of the different meetings that we had in Senegal, in Barcelona, in Indonesia, etc. And these are the 3 courses that you will find on this website, beyonddevelopment.net, for completely free use. So I will just lead you quickly through how this works. So this is the login page for the free courses. You have to first register, then log in with the same credentials that you put in your registry. And this leads you then to the all courses page, where you can choose whichever course you want to enroll in. The enroll is here in the Start Now button, and then you can start your course. And there is a counting on the right, where you can see how many lessons you already completed, and you can access the curriculum here on the left. So this is my next slide. Here you can see the first welcome slide, where at the bottom you can see that you have to register that you have completed this module. So it will be counted for your progress, because you will be extended a certificate of completion at the end of the course. So I will now just go very quickly into the first course that you can find on the page, which is called Beyond Development, Multidimensional Alternatives to a System That Kills Us. Several people have worked on this course. It was, I would say, a teamwork between Elise Klein from Australia, Nnimmo Bassey, who is also here from Nigeria, Roland Gam from South Africa, Ashish Kotari from India, and myself. And this section dives first into a critique of the development paradigm and the different debates that have existed referred to that, like how development became this booster of capitalist modes of living, destructive, detrimental modes of living since World War II. And then in section 3, we deploy a framework that was developed by this working group in order to assess social processes, transformative social processes, in which dimensions they actually achieve transformation and have their strength in this multidimensional transformative perspective, intersectional, we also could say. Then there are 3 sections that invite you to travel around the world. So there is one more Latin American section, which focuses on indigenous ontologies, the concept or the paradigm of buen vivir. Then there is one section on the debates around environmental justice and alternatives to development in Africa, and one section which focuses on India and the debates around Ecosocial. And then we have 3 other perspectives. We also contribute to this common umbrella of alternatives to development, which are feminist economics and care, the perspectives of the commons as this realm that is outside the domination or control of the state, and also outside the domination and control of the markets, because it focuses on the community processes, like the wealth that can be produced and also decided and controlled by communitarian processes. There is one section about degrowth, this oriented at this necessary shrinking of the global social metabolism in order to stay within planetary limits. And finally, a horizon of reparations, how we can repair this really broken world, our broken relations, our broken environment, and some final reflections. So this is the content of this course. And at the end of each section, you have a quiz. You will be able to take this quiz as many times as you need until you assert. And once you have complete all the quizzes, we know that you now dominate the content of the course, and you will be extended this certificate that you can download for free. So this is it from me. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Miriam. That was wonderful introduction, not only to the entire process, the group responsible for this process, but also the first of the 3 courses. So we're going to have 2 other people introduce the other 2 courses, but before we do that, we're going to have a comment on this particular module, and that comment is from Vasna Ramasar. And Vasna was born and raised in South Africa. She's a scholar activist. She's an associate professor at Lund University, which is in Sweden, and a founding member of the Global Tapestry of Alternatives and a member of Post-Extractive Futures Collective. Thank you, Vasna, for joining us.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone on this call. Thank you, John, for the introduction, and to Miriam and everyone from the Working Group Beyond Development for both inviting me to participate, but more importantly, for doing the work to put together these wonderful courses. Before I start to comment on the first cause, I also want to acknowledge that we are living through genocides in Palestine, in Sudan, in Congo. We are seeing extreme violences across many parts of the world, whether it is in Ukraine, Venezuela, and the list does go on. And it is in this reality that these causes come at such a timely moment. We're facing a move towards nationalism, focusing inwards, far right growth. We're seeing destruction of the planet and ecological crises spreading. And these are times that are difficult to live in. And as the cause announces, it is also a system that is killing us, a system that is built on colonial capitalism that is actually fostering the destruction of the earth and all beings on it. And so I think within that context, we need to think about the development paradigm, which is part of that system, and how even the solutions that are supposedly put forward to address these are continuities of that same colonial capitalism that are continuing the destruction and benefit for few in a very short term. So, with this world breaking taking place, we need to think about how do we take meaningful action, but also how do we actually do world making. And this first cause really introduces us to those potentialities. We've all heard the saying that it's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. And I would suggest that what we see at this moment is we have both a narrowing of our imagination about how alternatives are possible and what they could look like, but also a reduction in our education, being mainstreamed into the same sort of modernity thinking. And so these courses open up for us to really look at the world differently, to see other possibilities of how we can live, building from below, but also thinking about how we organize collectively. Miriam has run through the range of courses that the subjects and the topics within the courses. And what struck me was exactly that holistic perspective of understanding it across the globe, of seeing us as a common community, but also knowing that we can learn from experiences that are diverse from Latin America through Europe, Africa, and so many other places, so that nobody's left out, but also that we see this as part of a common emancipatory project. And so for me, this is also something really important in terms of the work that we do as the Global Tapestry of Alternatives and Post-Extractive Futures, both of which endorse these causes. It is about creating those openings, those possibilities to live in the world differently. We are told too often that these things are impossible, and yet there are communities that are facing that destruction on an everyday basis, that have faced it historically as well, but still manage to retain their cultures, their land, and their ways of knowing, being, and doing in the world. And so, what can we all take away from that? But also, what can we give to that in reciprocal relations of organizing differently? I believe that this is critical for our liberation project. But beyond that as well, I feel like these courses also can touch each and every one of us on a very personal level. We know that with the anxiety of what is happening in the world right now, it's easy to feel despondent and lonely. When we participate in learning projects like this, we build community, we also build a sense of agency and hope for the future that we can make together. And so I have actually signed up to participate in the course as someone who is a community educator and also a university teacher. I believe that there is a lot that we can all gain from this and share in our own communities and spheres of influence. So I thank the Global Working Group Beyond Development for what you have provided for this wonderful opportunity. And I hope to see many of you participate with me on these courses. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vasna. And thank you for gathering everybody together to join these courses with you. I think that's a wonderful opportunity and invitation. We're going to move now to the second course. And so we'll have an introduction on the second course, and then a comment, and then an introduction on the third course, and a comment. The second course is Cities of Dignity, Urban Transformations and Struggles for the City. And to introduce this module will be Mabrouka Mbarek, who is a Tunisian academic and politician who is a member of the Constituent Assembly of Tunisia. She is currently finishing her PhD at the University of Massachusetts in sociology, focusing on the history of labor and migration in North Africa and North America. Thank you, Mabrouka, for joining us today.
Hi, thank you, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you to introduce you one of our flagship online course called Cities of Dignity, Urban Transformation and the Struggle for the City. This course was the result of a realization within the Global Working Group Beyond Development. For a long time, when we were thinking about alternative to capitalism and building a world built on equality, anti-racism, ecological balance, and a world free from colonial domination, we tended to look at rural areas. We looked at peasant movement, indigenous territories, to the commons in the countryside. So we thought about that and why exactly we gravitate towards rural areas. And we thought that perhaps rural areas being far from the center of accumulation, it was easier to think about alternatives. So in one of our gatherings in Barcelona in 2018, we decided to really focus on asking this critical question, what about cities? After all, cities being the epicenter of capitalist accumulation, they are where power, finance, and exclusion are the most concentrated. So we decided to turn our gaze to the urban landscape, and not just as sites of crisis, but as crucial terrain of transformation and liberation. The result is a collective book, which Miriam showed at the beginning, called Cities of Dignities, Urban Transformation Around the World, which is, by the way, free to download. And each chapter offers case studies from Lagos, Barcelona, Detroit to Board, India. I, by the way, receive a lot of feedback regularly, people using it, not only in the course, they're discovering these case studies and they start research or they start talking about that in community. And it was the subject of a big discussion in Detroit, for example. Because again, we want to document these cases, not because they are successful, but it gives inspiration. People are not stuck in there's no alternative, we can't do anything, you know. And so we're offering, cases from the Global South and the Global North. So this online course is directly inspired by this collective book. But the difference is it takes you in a much deeper 10 weeks immersive journey into the heart of the urban struggle and possibilities. So what is this course about? In essence, the course Cities of Dignities invites you to think critically and creatively about the city. So it's not just, cities are not just a place of crisis, as I say, but it's a space of collective life, of resistance, of reimagined future. So the course is structured around 8 sections, and each explores a central theme that actually cuts across the global urban struggle. So we don't look at only one city, we look at different cases across the world, from Barcelona to Makoko, Detroit to Quito, Mumbai to Gaza. Let me give you a quick tour of this journey you would take if you sign up. So we begin by interrogating the very foundation of the modern city in Module 1, called the Urban Question. This is where we explore how cities have been shaped by capitalism, colonialism, and imperialism, and we introduce the radical demand of the right to the city. In Module 2, we look at how communities are reclaiming land, housing, infrastructure, and we're trying to grapple with the concept of urban commons. In the Module 3 dives into everyday's economy. So how are communities surviving and resisting through informal markets, community currencies, and the often invisible labor of care and social reproduction, right? So we're looking at the economy in general and the care that is mostly shouldered by women, right? Social reproduction. Module 4, we explore the fight for territory itself. How do we reclaim territory? So we look at how communities resist displacement and build collective life, from Isadora occupation in Brazil to the community-led planning in Bourges, India. And in this module, we're very lucky to have a guest lecture by Dr. Juliana Goes from Binghamton University, where she teaches us about anti-racism movement in Brazil. Module 5 grapples with the enduring legacy of empire and coloniality and post-colonial cities. We realize, again, in the context of post-colonial cities, the struggle is a little slightly different, as they have to deal with different class of, for example, diaspora investors, but also the enduring form of colonial domination. And here we look at Mumbai, at Lagos, and how do they continue to operate with these borders of exclusion that they inherited from colonialism. Module 6, we turn our vision to decolonial and liberation urbanism. And this particular module focus on the Black radical tradition in the United States. This is the only module that will really focus on one area. And we look at how cities like Detroit, Birmingham, Alabama, or Jackson, Mississippi are building cooperative economies and Afrofuturist futures. Module 7 confronts the realities of crisis and rupture. When we wrote Cities of Dignity, we were finishing the last chapter and the COVID happened. And so we took a pause and we reflected on what was going on. So we did include a part on COVID in the introduction, but we didn't have the time to really reflect because this was just happening. It was published in 2020. So this module actually does justice in what we couldn't achieve in the book. And it looks at crisis and rupture from pandemic, climate collapse, but also how war reshaped urban life. And we look in particular, as Vasna mentioned, in places like the genocide in Palestine and how people in Gaza are trying to survive during a genocide, because Gaza, even though it's destroyed, is a city. And we look at mutual aid and care. And finally, Module 8, we look at the future and we look at how local movements are connected through municipalism and translocal solidarity to build a global movement for dignified cities. So this course is kind of unique because it's grounded in real world experience of movement in communities in the front line of urban transformation. But it also it's quite interactive. It invites people at each module to reflect on their own cities or the cities that they're near them. So it's not really academic. It's much more like a toolkit to understand concept, to really be open to understand stories, whether they were successful or not. So we're not stuck in there's no alternative, right? And you're going to learn about framework you can apply to your own community, whether you're an activist, a scholar, an educator, concerned citizen. But also, I think critically, this course will be very helpful for any municipal institution that they want to train their staff. This was an excellent 10 weeks training for them. And you'll engage in political, sociological theory, multimedia content, short interviews, participatory activities, as I said, to understand cities not as fixed places, but as a space of struggle and possibilities that can be transformed. So I warmly invite you to join this journey, and I look forward to hear your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Mabrouka. And that's a great overview and an important reminder that yes, these are classes, these are courses, but these are for activists. These are toolboxes that can be really essential for trainers, for getting us out into the streets, for changing things. Obviously, we're here to learn about things, but we're also here, of course, to change things as well. We have now Gabriela Cabaña, who's going to give a short comment about this course on Cities of Dignity. Gabriela Cabaña is a sociologist and anthropologist with a PhD from the London School of Economics and Political Science. She is currently a member of the Ecosocial and Intercultural Pact of the South, Pacto Ecosocial y Intercultural del Sur, Energía y Equidad, and senior research scholar at the Institute of Global Value Inquiry. Yes. Thank you, Gabriela, for joining us today.
Hi, thank you, John, and hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on which part of the world you are right now. I want to thank you very much and to thank the Working Group Beyond Development for both putting these courses together, which is an incredible effort, and for inviting me to speak about this wonderful course on the Cities of Dignity. And I think it's so important, and I really liked, I took a look at the course, and I also enrolled myself in it, just like Vasna did. It's so interesting to explore the idea of transcending development, starting from a concrete setting. So starting from the places we inhabit. As an anthropologist, we always say, we do research in places, not about places. So just seeing around the places we are. It's a really good starting point, both analytically and for organizing, for those of us who want to transform the world in which we inhabit. And this course is definitely an invitation to look cities with new eyes and to make the familiar strange in the best of ways. And I just wanted to go back to something that Mabrouka said about cities as paradoxical settings of both being the heart of empire and sometimes the heart of capitalism, where capital takes actual shape. We see it in real estate, in the prices of buildings and homes, where the literal power can be read into the bricks that build the city. But we also see cities collapse when we get together, when we demonstrate, when we get to the streets, and we see these massive settings of power get to a standstill when the people really agree to do so. So I think that thinking about the cities from this radical perspective is also an invitation to reclaim our capacities for social creativity and to see the cities as something that we have inherited, that are in a way the material manifestation of history, but also something we can transform, something that we will recreate into the future, and hopefully we will do so in a different way, in a more just way, in a more dignified way. So what I understood from seeing the way this course is structured is that cities are made of the people that keep them going. And the same is true for society at large, right? Like we can take this learning to also think about transforming society. So today we see cities as settings, as Mabrouka was saying, mostly of violence, of speculation. But what I found really inspiring and of the way in which the course is structured is that we also learn about the power of solidarity that emerges when those considered outsiders work together. And there is so much to learn from these struggles. And I invite you to read of all these different cases and to see the radical potential. And here I have to say, like, you can see that this group and the particular instructor of this course, Mabrouka, she has like intimate knowledge of these processes, and it's really wonderful to see how well curated this is. So I'm looking forward to learn about all these cases. And I think that so often these processes remain hidden. We don't speak about them. We don't read about them in the media, in the mainstream media. When we live far away, it's very hard to connect and to learn and to hear from the protagonists of these processes what they learned, what they achieved, and maybe even learn that things that we in our cities take for granted are actually the fruit of these struggles. And just seeing this has like such radical revolutionary potential. So I I think we need to learn from these wins and also from the things that maybe didn't work. And the invitation here is not just to learn about it, but also, speak to your neighbor about it. Speak to the people you organize with, the people you struggle with. Also tell them, and this will certainly, spark something new. And finally, and here maybe speaking more as an anthropologist, for me, so important to remember that cities can be otherwise. So we often hear, and this is a common staple that I hear as an anthropologist, that cities are necessarily places of hierarchy because cities are complex, because there are too many of us, and that it's the natural trajectory of humanity that cities will become these oppressive places in which someone has to command, and there has to be violence in enforcing the order. But this is not true. And if we see the historical record, we see that it's full of democratic cities dedicated to music, to enjoyment, cities that fostered and were the fruit of egalitarian relations. And these were egalitarian cities because the people fought for them and because they organized around these principles of commonality and of egalitarianism. So there is so much our cities can do differently, and so much we have already done as humanity that is there in our history that we can reclaim and that we can recreate. So cities do not have to be the way they are today. They are not inevitably designed for hierarchy. We can do complexity otherwise in a more democratic and horizontal way. And yeah, I think this course is perfect to think precisely about how to transform cities as they are and work together to much better futures, emancipatory futures. So thank you.
Thank you, Gabriela. That was wonderful. And an important reminder that these courses are popular education. So they're of course popular in the sense that they're interesting. So when you take them, you are interested in the information, but popular also in the sense that you have a responsibility to get the word out to your friends and neighbors about these courses. They're also participatory. You participate in these classes. And we also hope you participate in this particular presentation by putting your questions in the Q&A module down at the bottom of your screen. We have one question, which we'll get to at the end of the presentations here. The next presentation is on the third and final of the courses, and this is going to be presented by Elise Klein. And Elise is an associate professor of public policy at the Crawford School at the Australian National University. Her research is situated in the intersections and cracks of development, social policy, decoloniality, and care. But as you can guess, because she's at the Australian National University, which means she's in Australia, which means that her time zone makes it extremely difficult for her to participate in person, we're going to have a video from Elise right now, and I'm going to play it for you. And let's hear from Elise.
Hi everyone, I'm Elise Klein. Sorry I can't be there with you in person. The time zones don't quite work when you're this far over here. I hope you're all well. I am the designer and writer of the reparations course and also a good chunk of the Beyond Development course. And so I'm going to speak to you a little bit about the reparations course today. And really this idea of the course came from the Jackson meeting that we had, the Beyond Development Jackson meeting hosted by Corporation Jackson on debts and reparations. And, it was such a rich and powerful workshop with so many important contributions from colleagues around debts and reparations. And so this course basically emulates a lot of the themes that really emerged from the course of the week that we had together. And so, we start off with thinking about what are reparations, and, thinking about sort of the long history that social movements have worked on in terms of demands for reparations. Thinking about some of the conceptual ideas around how people have thought about what reparations are. And then moving into, kinds of world-making views of reparations. So moving away from reparations as harm repair, really, but thinking about it as a way, as a process to reorder the world, and thinking about reparations as a process, a political, economic, social, ecological process that was about reordering a very racialized and colonial world order. So in that way, we move through various other sort of perspectives and sections. So land back, there's a section on land back, and this, particularly for First Nations peoples, and how important not just monetary and policy or political restructuring, but also the return of land in settler colonies. Thinking about the gendered impacts and gender dimensions of reparations, debt cancellation as being a long process of reparative justice in terms of debt cancellation, ecological reparations, repatriation of stolen ancestors and treasures and items, the work of repatriation that focuses on the Naga, the work of the Naga people that have been working to bring ancestors home. Then we move towards the end of the course where we're looking at the enduring politics of reparations. And I mean, this is very real. The kinds of, huge movements for reparations globally, and yet constantly up against a belligerent, destructive global north that, is unable to cough up and pay what is owed, to restructure relations. The global racial empire, if I can draw on Afemi Taiwo's work. So thinking about the enduring politics of reparations, but that also draws on, I think, the really rich work of the workshop that we had and the discussions we had in Jackson, and really thinking about reparations not as a payment but as a process of restructuring and reordering relations, and the work of social movements and how critical social movements are, not to wait for lawyers or the state to enact justice. They never do it themselves, or the state at least. That it comes from social movements, and how important the demands for reparative justice are, can and remain that way. And then we move to the conclusion. So I hope you enjoy, and to acknowledge, this work is built on the backs of the many, for many, many, many years, from vast areas across the planet, the work of people who have fought for reparative justice, and to acknowledge the bravery and the resistance and the ingenuity of the work that they have done to get the space of reparations to where it is, the work of reparations, to acknowledge all the people that have come before, and to all the communities and scholars and activists who we draw on for this course to be possible. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Video Elise, for your presentation. We are now going to go to a comment about the reparations module, and that's going to come from Reine Baimey, who will be speaking French. So if you speak French, you will be able to hear it in French. If you want to hear the translation, go to the interpretation button at the bottom and make sure that you hit that. Reine Baimey is an Abidjan-based ecofeminist and climate justice activist. She serves as a key organizer and regional leader for the WoMin Pan-African Feminist Alliance, spearheading campaigns for gender justice, climate reparations, and the defense of indigenous land and water rights across West and Central Africa. Thank you so much for joining us, Reine.
Merci John, merci à vous, au groupe de travail Beyond Development, de me permettre de faire ce commentaire sur ce cours vraiment important. Et je pense qu'il était aussi important d'écouter les autres intervenantes que je remercie déjà pour leurs interventions et à qui je me joins pour dresser un portrait de la faillite du modèle capitaliste. Et je pense que c'est un des traits communs qui revient dans les trois cours qui ont été présentés. Le capitalisme mondial est en faillite et en crise, et cela frappe de plein fouet le continent africain. Le continent étouffe aujourd'hui sous une dette colossale de plus de 1100 milliards de dollars pour rembourser pour rembourser les banques et les institutions financières internationales. Les États doivent sacrifier leur budget public, un coût socio-économique violent qui est entièrement externalisé sur la nature, pillé par l'extractivisme, et sur les femmes qui, elles, portent gratuitement la charge de la survie des communautés. Alors, euh, un pays comme par exemple le Nigeria dépense près de la moitié de ses recettes fiscales pour le remboursement des intérêts de sa dette. Le Cameroun, des pays comme le Cameroun, le Ghana, le Mozambique ou même la Zambie sont obligés font face à des coupes budgétaires importantes en ce qui concerne les services essentiels de base pour leur population. Euh, le FM, plus récemment en Afrique de l'Ouest, au Sénégal, le FMI et la Banque mondiale veulent que le Sénégal restructure sa dette et nous connaissons les conséquences désastreuses de ces mesures d'austérité sur les économies, donc sur l'inflation, le pouvoir d'achat des populations, la privatisation de l'économie. Voici autant de réalités qui font comprendre que la dette n'est pas juste un simple concept économique. La dette est une arme de domination, de contrôle qui est utilisé par les pays occidentaux, les anciennes puissances coloniales, pour continuer à maintenir les pays de la majorité globale et particulièrement les pays africains sous domination pour continuer la spoliation des ressources naturelles et bien d'autres. Et c'est en cela que pour moi ce cours il est particulièrement important. Le cours sur la dette et les réparations, en ce sens que l'un des intérêts de ce cours sur la dette sur les réparations et la dette est que au-delà des aspects académiques que le cours articule, il permet également de susciter une remise en question, une réflexion critique profonde du modèle extractiviste et capitaliste dominant, et il s'oppose puissamment à l'économie orthodoxe des modèles dominants que les institutions financières internationales nous imposent à travers voilà, les modèles de financement, la dette, l'austérité, etc. Alors, pourquoi ce coût je pense que voilà, ce cours il est également important parce qu'il nous permet de dépasser la notion de charité et de nous éloigner des excuses de façade. Les approches traditionnelles réduisent souvent les réparations à une simple transaction, des compensations financières isolées ou des déclarations abstraites sur les droits de l'homme. Par contre, ce cours s'attaque aux racines du problème en reliant les points de l'histoire pour montrer que la colonisation, l'esclavage, l'apartheid et les génocides ne sont pas des événements isolés du passé, mais ce sont les structures fondatrices qui continuent d'alimenter l'architecture actuelle et les inégalités mondiales qui continuent les inégalités mondiales qui continuent de construire nos réalités. Alors, ce cours, pour moi, il est aussi important parce qu'il s'inscrit parfaitement dans l'agenda actuel. du continent africain. Alors que, par exemple, l'Union africaine intensifie ses efforts autour de la justice réparatrice en ayant déclaré une décennie des réparations et que, par exemple, les Nations unies ont récemment reconnu l'esclavage comme étant l'un des plus grands crimes contre l'humanité, il y a un véritable élan diplomatique à saisir, je crois. Et ce qui nous permet d'imaginer et de définir ce à quoi les réparations pourraient ressembler et identifier les approches, des stratégies pour atteindre et pour les atteindre, comme tout à l'heure Lise le mentionnait dans sa vidéo. Les réparations doivent impérativement passer par l'annulation inconditionnelle des dettes souveraines illégitimes et le démantèlement des modèles économiques extractivistes qui enrichissent le Nord global au détriment des écosystèmes et des communautés africaines. Et je pense aussi que voilà, ce cours va vraiment, il va profiter à beaucoup d'acteurs, à tout le monde de façon générale. Comme Vasna et Gabriela disaient, elles allaient s'inscrire ou elles étaient déjà inscrites à ce cours. Au niveau de WoMin également, moi et toute l'équipe qui travaille sur la dette et les réparations, pensons nous inscrire à ce cours parce que ça sera une opportunité formidable d'apprentissage, mais de discussion aussi. Et comment les discussions que nous allons pouvoir avoir au cours de ce cours-là vont nous permettre de repenser ou d'organiser notre travail programmatique. Alors, et je pense que pour les organisations, ce cours aussi va être une opportunité formidable d'apprentissage pour les organisations, les mouvements sociaux, les collectifs écoféministes, tous ces acteurs-là qui sont engagés dans la défense euh, des droits de l'homme, la défense et les outils juridiques. Je pense que ce cours va donner des outils juridiques, politiques, économiques nécessaires pour permettre de passer de la théorie à l'action, pour permettre de quitter une posture de simple opposition et entrer dans une dimension un peu plus réactionnelle euh, pour développer des stratégies qui soient proactives. Et je pense que l'intervenante précédente l'a aussi mentionné, voilà, d'ancrer la question des réparations dans une critique plus structurelle et, dans une logique de processus. Pas juste des simples compensations financières pour lesquelles voilà, on s'organiserait, mais les réparations ont vraiment un potentiel transformationnel important et ce coût-là va vraiment permettre aux acteurs de la société civile, aux organisations, voilà, d'ancrer leur travail dans une dimension beaucoup plus structurelle, de critique beaucoup plus structurelle. Les étudiants également, et je pense le monde académique va également bénéficier de ce cours-là parce qu'il permet de déconstruire les modèles économiques et juridiques qui sont eurocentrés de façon générale. Il va apprendre aux étudiants à analyser, par exemple, de manière critique les systèmes internationaux, à comprendre comment la finance mondiale fonctionne et comment les accords commerciaux et les injustices environnementales contribuent à perpétuer euh, une véritable dette climatique et écologique historique. Alors, peut-être que je sais que le temps qui m'est imparti n'est pas tellement grand, mais je vais peut-être conclure rapidement en disant que ce cours est fondamental parce qu'il ne traite pas les réparations comme une simple doléance ou une simple grief qui tournait vers le passé. Mais il définit plutôt les réparations comme un outil de transformation structurelle et radicale pour l'avenir. Il permet aux personnes les plus marginalisées par le modèle patriarcal et capitaliste dominant d'accéder à la justice réparatrice. Il nous permet, euh, il nous permet il nous permet de mettre au défi et d'imaginer comment construire un monde où les politiques mondiales seraient dictées par autre chose que le profit, où les politiques mondiales seraient dictées par la responsabilité écologique, la guérison collective et non pas par la préservation d'une domination héritée de l'histoire. Merci, je pense que c'est tout pour moi.
Thank you, Reine. That's really wonderful, and an important reminder that yes, individuals can sign up for these classes, but there can be as well collective engagement with these classes. Entire organizations can take these classes and serve as an interesting and important way of rethinking the work that takes place within organizations. And thank you, Jemima, for the translation as well. Our final comment comes from Nnimmo Bassey, who's going to wrap things up for us nicely. And Nnimmo's a wonderful wrapper of things. He's the director of the ecological think tank Health of Mother Earth Foundation in Nigeria. He was chair of Friends of the Earth International and executive director of Nigeria's Environmental Rights Action. He was a co-recipient of the 2010 Right Livelihood Award, also known as the Alternative Nobel Prize, and in 2012 he received the RAFTO Human Rights Award. Thank you so much, Nnimmo, for joining us today.
Thank you, John, for the introduction and for convening this wonderful webinar today. The presentations by Miriam, by Mabrouka, and Elise have been extremely enlightening. And, I come off feeling that this is not just a series of courses, but this is a school. And everybody should enroll in this school. This is a school of life. And, just looking at the fact that everything is packaged to provide popular education in dark times says a whole lot, because we are truly living in very dark times. It's a time where there's a huge deficit of morality and where there is what we call political confusion. The only thing that is constant in the world today is the continuation of colonial exploitation and extraction in diverse ways. That is getting worse and worse and worse. And I believe that being a part of these courses would not only enlighten participants, but equip us and challenge us to, I'm saying us because I'm also joining the course, of course, challenge all of us to put to practice what we're sharing, and also to wake up to revolt against the system that kills us. We cannot acknowledge that this system is killing us and then we fold our hands and do nothing about it. And so actually looking at the three courses and just tying everything up quickly. Beyond development, multi-dimensional alternatives to a system that kills us, as Miriam presented, is truly very fundamental. And in fact, we need to go back in history. And there's a Ghanaian symbol, Sankofa, that shows that progress without history is no progress at all. So we need to go back to real wisdom to sharpen the future that we're heading to, because the current system is really, really killing us. And then when it came to cities of dignity or dignified cities, that really, really makes it challenges all of us to look around, to be alive to where we are. What are the forces shaping our cities? Why our cities shaped the way they are? Why is there so much inequality in the city? And the fact that the city is the epicenter of capitalist accumulation just says it all. And so we're not just going to be looking through the course, not just looking at cities and drawing maps, but fighting for territories and building truly post-colonial or anti-colonial cities that are not following the framework that was set by colonial masters, but cities that truly liberate. And, I remember when some of our comrades including Miriam, were in Makoko, which is a floating city in Lagos. We could really see a city built by the people, a city that is, adapted to global warming and sea level rise. But there's a city also that is being challenged by the system. The governments and speculators who want waterfront locations for luxury apartments, for leisure, and for everything that excludes the real people are fighting very hard very hard. Makoko has been demolished, largely demolished. There were a lot of resistance, a lot of work in January this year. But right now, we're waiting to see what is going to be the next steps. And then, of course, when we look at what has happened in Gaza, I would just think about the dignity of the people who are living in tents, the people in Sudan, in South Sudan, the people in DRC displaced by extraction. We really see that we need to fight for dignity even in our city spaces. Cities are not neutral spaces. There are spaces for struggle, and we must be active in that. And then finally, the presentation, the course on reparation and debt is so critical, because debt is not only colonial, it is extractivist. It's about that, and most of the time, debt is just another way of exploitation and expropriation. It's not just a question of money exchanging hands that you have to pay back. No, the money is not changing, it's your own money. That sometimes people borrow their own money through the World Bank and they can never finish paying back the interest on the loans on their own money. And reparation is so critical also because recently, I think last week or so, African leaders and Caribbean leaders met in Ghana and adopted the principle for reparatory justice, requiring that those who had created all the havoc, especially slavery, should formally apologize for that. And so the courses will help equip participants with how to make amends for past harms and also to fight against current systemic injustices. One other conference that I remember is one I participated in November 2025 on colonialism. And that conference declared that colonialism is a crime. And so all this call for reparation, and we have to look for who is actually owing whom.
Thank you. Nnimmo, you, as usual, wrap things up lovely, in a lovely manner, and in a timely manner, because we are now just at the end of an hour, and everyone has been wonderful in terms of their adherence to our time schedule. So we've managed to include a lot of voices in this period of time, and we've managed to also get a bunch of questions. And I'm going to group those questions into 3 categories, and of course maybe we'll get some more questions, but at least the first 7 questions. One category is kind of the mechanics of the courses, and that question is going to go to Miriam. A second question is on hinterlands, things that are not quite urban, not quite rural, and I'm going to go to Mabrouka to answer that one. And the third question is on queer theory and feminist theory, and I'm going to throw that up to whomever would like to answer it. But let's first start with the mechanics, and we're going to go to Miriam. Miriam, folks want to know basically, how much of these classes are participatory, how much of it is self-regulated, and can you take, say, all 3 classes simultaneously if you are so so desirous? So please give us a little bit more information about that.
Yeah, we were concerned about making those courses as accessible as possible to everybody in the whole world. So you can enroll in them at any time and take them at your own pace. You can take them slowly, you can take them in 3 days if you want, and just do it more intensively. And as they are all completely self-guided. So this is you interacting with the course. You will find video materials, you will find reading materials, you will find further readings if you want to get deeper into any stuff. And you will find the quizzes, which just are your self-check if you have grasped the former content. And but what Reine said, I think, is very crucial, because this does not necessarily mean that you have to do that in a solitary way. We encourage you very much to just team up with other people and set your own schedule for the courses and come together to discuss the different sections. among your group. So this will not be a gathering with the people of the global working group. There is not a tutor or anything in the courses because simply we don't have the human capacities in terms of time for that. But we really encourage you to build these collective processes, to use these courses as a tool for organizing, for collectively asking the right questions and appropriating them also to your context in a collective way.
Excellent. Thank you, Miriam. I would encourage folks to speak as loudly as they can. A couple people have mentioned they have some difficulty hearing us. So I'm going to pass it on to Mabrouka. Mabrouka, what can you tell us about hinterlands and how they're addressed in your course in particular?
Yeah, I will respond to this question and briefly on the question of queerness because it is directly, my course engaged with these topics. So Cecilia, thank you very much for this important question. The space you described that where urban and rural blur the livelihood that are tied with the lands and it's true can be overlooked in planning. So I want to make sure people understand this online course doesn't focus on case studies per se. We don't dedicate a module on Latin America, for example, Latin America interland. Rather, these case studies illustrate. But that's an intentional design. Our approach is not to provide a series of case study, but concept and toolkit that can be applied across different contexts, including the peri-urban area that you described. So throughout, for example, these 8 modules, we explore frameworks that can travel beyond these specific geographies. And when I'm thinking about the specific concept and tools that you can apply for what you describe, I'm thinking of territories that are more than land, their space of identity, struggle, and care. I'm thinking about community-led planning, which centers local knowledge and challenges the top-down model of planning. I'm thinking about coloniality and how it shaped exclusion and governance, climate justice through decolonial and indigenous lenses, but also everyday economies can be also applied to these peri-urban areas where informal livelihoods and community-created alternatives can provide some real change for people. And at the end, also the concept which we tackle in module, the last one, which is translocal solidarity and how movement connects with strategies across borders. So again, the case are illustrating, and what we do at each module is to ask you to reflect how you can use or not use on your own cities. And I also wanted briefly to respond to Kenji, which is also an important question. Queer autonomies and embodiment are actually engaged in the course. But similarly, we don't have a specific named standalone theme. In the same way, we do not have a specific standalone theme of feminist framework, for example. So we see queerness more directly in Module 6, where you'll learn about Afrofuturism, for example, which is more than an artistic movement. It's a radical political framework that fuses cultural memory, speculative imagination, and resistance. It's inherently challenged the normative categories of identity, embodiment, and time, and open space for queer future. But we also touch in this more explicitly with in Module 4 with Dr. Juliana Degos's lecture on urban occupation of Brazil, which is the foundation is actually, she focused on anti-racism and queerness. And in Module 7, there is a video by indigenous activist Cara Sherwood Oregon from Aotearoa, which is New Zealand, called New Zealand, and she brings together disability, decolonial, and community-led perspective that is open to queerness. So again, we don't have a dedicated module, and we recognize that queer feminist framework, all of these are essential to an anti-colonial future and how to redistribute struggles to offer transformation in the city. But thank you for your questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Mabrouka. Reine, I wonder if you have anything you'd like to add to any of these questions, perhaps this issue of queerness and feminism, and how I mean, Elise, of course, is not here to respond to the question with respect to debt and reparations, but I don't know, Reine, if you have anything you'd like to add to that. I'll give you a moment to...
Merci, John. Non, pas du tout. J'ai pas de réponse. Je me suis même retrouvée dans les éléments de réponse que Mabrouka a apportés. Donc, j'espère que voilà, ce sont des éléments satisfaisants pour les différents participants et surtout pour ceux qui ont posé les questions.
Excellent, thank you. One more question is about discussion group facilitators, and while there isn't that functionality within the courses right now, there has been a suggestion that maybe there could be volunteers who could lead such an effort from Kimberly Dark. Miriam, any thoughts on the incorporation of volunteer discussion leaders? You're muted, Miriam.
Let me just read Kimberly's text. Yeah, I think we are totally open to offering like one-time discussion events with a bunch of people that are enrolled. I think this is feasible. We just didn't want to commit to do that on a regular basis throughout the next 2 years or so. But yes, you can reach out to us. For example, you can find my email, I think, quite easily in the internet, or I can put it in the chat here too, if you would be willing to moderate such a thing. We can set up the space, and we can also invite some of the people that appear in the courses maybe to attend. That would be a process in the making, as everything that we do is experimental, but I think it's a nice idea.
Thank you. Miriam, Mabrouka.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that this course is not just what you see online, it's also the community that is going to be created, the sort of meta community, the discussion forum, the quorum, the cohort forum. And so even if like today we don't have the capacity to build that, what I wanted to say is the participants are making this course as much as we did. And so we are very open that if all the participants someone wants to take the lead and create a forum, create a discussion forum or a cohort group, whatever it is in any platform that you wish, we are very open to that because again, we don't have ownership on the course is yours.
That's an important reminder. Thank you, Mabrouka. This is a collective effort, that not only a collective effort in producing these classes, but a collective effort that involves everyone who participates in these classes as well. I'm going to give Vasna, Gabriela, and Nnimmo a final chance. I know you haven't raised your virtual hands, but I want to give you a final chance if you have any final comments before we wrap this up. And there is enthusiastic shaking of heads. So we will then say thank you to everyone for coming out. Thank you, of course, to the presenters and the commenters, both live and virtual. It's been a wonderfully informative session and an inspiring session because it really presents these classes not just as a kind of static educational model, but as an opportunity for organizing, an opportunity for organizational transformation, an opportunity to get out into the world and change things for the better. I'm going to just very quickly remind folks of who our co-sponsors were: Health of Mother Earth Foundation in Nigeria, Foreign Policy and Focus in the US, Transnational Institute in the Netherlands, WoMin, Pan-African Feminist Alliance, the Ecosocial and Intercultural Pact of the South and Latin America, HINTS, Sahita Institute in Indonesia, Post-Extractive Futures Transnational Network, Vikalp Sangam, Alternatives India, and the Global Tapestry of Alternatives. I sounded a little bit like those disclaimers at the end of a medical products advertisement. But my name is John Pfeffer, and I'm with the Institute for Policy Studies, and I want to thank you once again for joining us. We will have this available as a video, and we will send that link around to everyone who registered for this class. So once again, thank you and have a wonderful day.